G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Susan Groeneveld from WS, based in beautiful Calgary, Alberta. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Let's start with how we know each other. I think it was Faisal on our podcasting team that reached out.
Yes, correct.
Great. So tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So we are a marketing practice, so pretty heavily saturated market, but we make money doing all the intricated pieces of marketing to and for multinationals in agriculture, animal health, and a little bit of human pharma. So fairly huge market. There's companies that are public. But we've really created a niche based on our expertise in these core industries. So we make money helping people market their products.
Right. And is that mainly on retainers or project-based work?
You know what? It is an AOR. We'd call it agency of record.
Yep.
So when we started actually in 2003, we started with a multi-million-dollar client. We were very fortunate to start that way. But we have that same client. So we're very relationship driven, and it's very much long-term planning. Marketing is not, that's the difference between marketing and sales, right? We're looking for the long play, but our clients are with us a long time.
Yep, great. So how did you start out back in 2003? Did you jump from corporate?
It's such I get asked this question a lot, actually. And yes, I was already in a company, an agency, doing this kind of work. So it doesn't sound that spectacular, but what was really great was that agency was divesting because there'd been a merger. And we had actually the president of a company with that old agency suggest us to help start up this new business. So it really was someone gave us the opportunity, and we'd already decided, and we being my husband and myself had already decided that we loved what we did, but it had to be equity based if we were going to move on.
Yep.
In this marketing world. So we knew going in we'd want equity.
Yep.
So that's how it started.
Great. And how old were you when you decided to make that scary jump in 2003?
35 and 2 little kids. I had I think he was 4 and a 2-year-old.
Wow, that's brave.
Crazy. Oh, Lord. Crazy.
And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over those 18 years?
Yeah, so over the course of time, we had a business goal to double our revenue every 5 years. Mm-hmm. So that's about a 15% growth year over year. We've been hitting that. We had 3 rolls of that, and things were going really well. And then actually, what was interesting is we started to plateau around 2018. And then COVID hit. And so that actually we'd been thinking about what we needed to do. And I think this does happen at a certain point. You get to good growth, and then you got to make some bigger decisions with bigger investment.
Yep.
And when COVID hit, that was a real opportunity for us to go, okay, what do we really want out of this? So revenue went down by 15%
mm-hmm.
at the start of last year, early, in March 2020, we were going down because of COVID, but our gross profit went up 10%. Wow. So we actually pivoted. Yeah, we actually pivoted with an increase in profit, and it's because we got real busy, and we'd already been thinking about it for a couple of years of what we needed to do. So, great opportunity. I mean, at the time it was horrible, but a great opportunity to kind of rattle the cages.
Yep. And what was the major change for that to happen? I mean, if top line's gone down 15%, but gross profit's gone up.
That major change was So there's a really great book, and this is going to date me a little bit, but in the 90s, obviously, I was thinking about my own business. I've been thinking about my own business probably since I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a great book from the people that created Home Depot. It's called Built from Scratch. And one of the things that stood out for me was the people that are going to get you to like a $5 million place are not the people that are going to get you to 2 billion. They're just not. We're not built like that. And so what really shifted is we got really serious about the type of people on our team. And it was really tough because there's some people that have been incredibly loyal from the very beginning. And when you start a company and you say, I am not going to act like those big companies. I am going to treat people like gold.
Yeah.
I'm going to, I want people to see me on the street and want to cross the street and shake my hand because we had an engagement together. I'm going to do all these things differently. And then you realize that you're at this plateau and you're like, holy cow, who is going to help us get to the next level? And so we really had to focus on the folks that had a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than people that were happy to just solve the first problem. And so we got busy with some changes, but we also disrupted our own industry, and we started a different approach, which was outcome based rather than activity based.
Right.
So rather than getting paid for, I don't know, a TV ad or a sell sheet or by project, we started to marry it to the business goals of our clients. So then they were, it's more outcome based. And so obviously the value goes up, right? Because we're actually moving targets.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty profound, and the trajectory is really promising. So disrupting ourselves.
And since I guess in the last year, since you made that change, have you found revenue rebound, or it's still down?
Yep. Revenue is rebounding. And because we work in agri-food and food in general, during this time, right, it was the least hit with GDP, during COVID. And there's all this activity, like, holy smokes, there's so much venture capital coming into agriculture and food. So it's a pretty exciting time actually right now. But I got to tell you, it's all about mindset.
Yep.
Right.
Mm.
It's there if you want it. If you don't want it, it's not there.
Yep. Well, that's a great approach, because a lot of people would have just, when COVID hit, would have shut themselves. But you guys really thought hard about what needed to change in the business. And there were obviously very healthy changes.
Mm-hmm.
And what FTE did you start with? Was it just yourself and your husband when you started out, two of you?
We had, because we both had come out of big companies, it was just ourselves, but we realized early on that we didn't have the appropriate skills to actually run a business. So we hired actually the heartbeat of, people that we knew that really knew how to take it to the next level. They were organized, they could build process. They understood financials. And so there was 3 of us actually when we started. But, early on, I actually thought we had this tiny square footage. I think I had $2,000 to kind of deck out our space. And I actually thought I needed to hire a plant waterer, a person to come in to water our plants, because that's what we'd had in the bigger shop. So, I was super naive, right? Because It's like, hey, wait a minute. I'd like to mention we don't have any live plants in our organization because nobody waters the plants.
Oh, right. Gold. And so what FTE are you up to now?
We have about, we're just over 30 full-time, but the other pivot that we've made, and we did this actually coming in, this is a heavily saturated market. There's tons of talent. There are people doing, as marketing in their basements, or, like different kinds of access offshore. So we went hard early on and said, we don't need to be the expert. We need to know how to find the experts. And so we have about 100 to 150 freelancers on our roster. And at any given time, there might be like 20 of them, depends on the projects and the flow.
Yep.
So that we can bring in the expertise and then we can let it go again. So, it ebbs and flows, and that's hard too, but we've kind of figured that out.
So all up at the moment, probably 50 to 60, including those freelancers, would be the full-time equivalent.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, Yeah, I think the thing to think about is we use headcount as a way to measure the size of a company, and it's super, super misleading. If you think about all the venture capital money that's coming into startups, um, I don't even know, because there's, and especially after COVID, there's such a different way to do business now. Like we're all doing it remote, right? Here we are. I know it's a standard way to look at it, but I think it's a very dangerous way to measure
Yeah.
success.
Yep. And when was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
Uh, I don't know if I have felt that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, actually. I don't know. I don't know. I think actually there was one moment when I looked out my window in the morning and I realized that our income was going to double. And I thought, what changes? Because I was actually a little bit worried that I'd become a bad person. Those greedy people that
Yeah.
make ego-driven decisions
Yeah.
because they have money.
The pay people
And
to get their plants watered.
right, totally, right. So I was like, I don't want, my mom told me, I grew up on a farm, right? Those are not nice people, right? That are
Yeah.
just kind of greedy, don't look out for other people. So I was actually quite worried about that. That was a block. And I realized the sun kept coming up and my bedroom window faces east. And I thought there's absolutely nothing that is going to change
Yep.
except what I want to have change. So if I stay true and grounded, I can make as much money as I want.
Yep. Great.
So yeah, that was actually probably a success moment, was it gave me permission to take it to the next level.
Yeah. And what does success look like to you?
I think if the journey's horrible, it's not worth it, right? If you have to think about how many bodies you've eviscerated, or if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and say, I treated people, the best I could,
Yep.
then I think that's a fail. So I think success for me is watching people grow and trying to help people reach their true potential. And listen, I'm no expert, but maybe together we can do some crazy things and wonderful things. So I think helping people seeing their potential too is really rewarding.
Perfect question for you. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
Yeah, I don't know. Is that a perfect question? I don't know. What is the number one thing I'd recommend? It is a good question. You know what? Actually, I think in terms of marketing, we've all heard, right? Like hire people smarter than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, we have hired people that make more money in wage than we do in our organization, and we're proud of it.
Yep.
And those people are going to have a passion that drives the business forward. And so I think invest in those people and then let them grow and let them take you with them. So in terms of marketing, for us, it's really relationship based. So word of mouth is really important, and doing what you said you're going to do and the handshake. So I think hire smart people and let them be your advocates.
Great. And how did you fund your business?
We were lucky. We had a client, we had to pitch for the business, but we were lucky because we had a big fish on the hook, I guess, so to speak. And we had to prove ourselves out, but we thought we had a good chance. But we did have a little bit of a startup. Actually, my mom gave us a little bit of money, and we made sure we paid it back the same year.
Great.
So that was one of our goals. So we did have some family and friends help.
Mm-hmm. And no investors along the way?
No investors. And we've been very, again, like, again, I think I mentioned I grew up farm. So we're very practical.
Yep.
Yes. And risk averse too. So we've never carried debt on the company. In fact, I can remember at one point we were told, well, our controller said, I think we should get a credit line, and we were horrified. we thought it was like, bad management. And they're like, no, this is good management. We're like, I don't know. So it was quite a few years in before we actually got a credit line. And I think we've used it maybe twice.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably slowed us down from growing faster, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's got to fit within your own risk profile, what you're happy to take on. Mm.
Yeah.
And if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is such an exciting time in marketing, and it's ridiculously saturated, but there's so much going on from a digital point of view, and the personalization. And, like psychology of humans hasn't really changed that much, right? Since the beginning, it really hasn't changed that much, but everything we do and the technology that we have has.
Yep.
And so that's our best shot, right? So yeah, it's an exciting time. It's super competitive. And I think you have to really know what you value so that you can find the clients that align with you instead of trying to be everything to everybody.
Yep.
But
It's
yeah,
a really good point.
I definitely would.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Oh my gosh, pick
Just
one.
one.
You guys are lucky you can't see my hair, right?
I went grey my mid-20s, I think, when I started in business.
Yeah, we're all good, but maybe not so much. You know what? Stressful points. Boy, I don't know, pick a stressful point. I think in the early days, we only had one client, and that was the whole enchilada. And so I would say I can remember going to New Year's and there was promises made we'd get paid, and we had overextended everything that we had personally just because it was the first year, and the paycheck wasn't coming in, and we were devastated to not be able to pay people. Like, I mean, we've always treated people the way we think we should be treated. So they were really well looked after, or they're really well looked after. We like to think so. So anyways, that was stressful. And of course the money was good, but it was the first indication that these big companies really don't, when you're a little fish with a big client, they really don't care if you're on the hook.
Yep.
So that was pretty stressful, but it works out, things worked out, and they paid January 1st.
Yeah.
So
what area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Boy, that's a good question. I think personally, growth for me has been, I don't know, I'm going to take an angle here as a female a little bit, right? We've got a real pleasing service mindset.
Yep.
And I think it's actually slowing down and taking a breath and actually letting things roll the way that they can roll, rather than trying to fix things all the time. Quite often as entrepreneurs, we want to fix it and get to the next thing. And I think it's like, take that beat, take a pause, let it sit for a while, because actually the solution may present itself. Rather than thinking you can fix it right away, you're probably creating more problems by reacting.
And what have you enjoyed least about managing fast growth?
Operations.
Yep.
Not a big fan of the operations. People are organic, moving, living, human, like they're real people. And so, they're going to act like real people. And I love people, but operationally it's really hard, because you're hoping everyone's good until they're not good, right? So operations is tough.
Yep. And what do you love most about growing a small business?
Possibilities. We're really fortunate that we get to work with really interesting categories of people doing interesting things, and the possibilities to impact that and influence that is so exciting. Driving real change, right? Being purposeful. It's wonderful. That's part of why we all want to be entrepreneurs, right? Is we want to be a part of the thing that makes this world hum.
What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I think at the beginning, I thought once we'd solved a problem, it was fixed. You got to hire a certain role, you hire someone there, it's done. You walk away from that problem. And what I've come to learn is that early on, get used to embracing change, because the change is just going to keep coming, and force yourself to love it rather than hate it. Have the hard conversations, have the good conversations, but get really comfortable with change. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to survive, I think.
Yeah, change is the only constant, as they say.
Yeah.
What's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Gee, you're asking me. Actually, I think and I mean, this sounds like common sense, and your listeners may know it better than I do, but during COVID, I started to work out every day. Mm-hmm. And I was, somewhat active before, but now I think getting that mind body space, burning that energy, that anxiety energy, putting it in a healthy place. Wow, you can move mountains if you feel good, right? I think early on it was have a beer and socialize, and now it's much more like I got more to do, so I want to feel good when I do it.
I totally agree. Exercise is really key to the optimal performance. You sleep better. You feel so much better, more energy, more focus.
Yeah. And it's time to think, right?
Yeah.
Your phone's off.
Yep.
You're in a zone. It's a really good time to think.
Do you love talking small business growth with other owners? We have a vibrant online community from many industries around the world. Plus, we regularly add new tools and resources for community members and host 2 webinars a month to help you grow your small business. growsmallbusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
It's the hardest part. The people part, I think, is the hardest part. And maybe HR people will say that's not, but boy, it's so hard. I can tell you that I have had terrible hires. My worst mistakes is I kind of wanted to hear what I wanted to hear because I just wanted to get the person in and move on. And so you kind of decide this is what you want out of this person, and you make up what they say to fit your agenda.
Yeah, been there.
Right. It's you just, because we're trigger pullers, right? We want to get going. And now I'm a much better listener. And the other thing, so we've had some terrible hires and some, beautifully wonderful hires. And I think the biggest thing is, and I know this should be, everybody knows this probably, but hiring for growth, like people that really, really want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
People may say that, but they act different once they're in the job. And I think that you really want to hire those people that want it as bad as you do,
Yeah.
So attitude over skill set any day.
Oh, I totally agree. There's 2 things to that I say. In the businesses I work with, I believe people are the hardest thing in small business and where the value's at. And also in hiring, I look for attitude and aptitude. That's just so much more important than what degree they've got or what experience. If they've got the right attitude, you can teach them what they need to know.
Yeah, I've had stories, I've had, inclusivity and diversity, right? So I'm a big fan, obviously, of, as a female, big fan of that. And I've actually had members kind of working against people. And it's like, what? Not on my team, right? Like, I can't even believe it. But I mean, it's everywhere, right? So I think, embrace the change, right? And as many different approaches and different ways of looking at it as possible. And I'm going to swear before you do in your podcast.
I think I've already sworn.
Did you? Yeah, no, I missed it. Yep. No assholes. So we have a no asshole rule.
That's great.
Right, at our office. Yeah.
Just back on people, is that great Texan saying, which is the definition of conflict is 2 people in the same county? Because, it's any 2 people.
Inevitable.
Yeah, inevitable. Absolutely. Mm.
Yeah.
And back on, sorry, go.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, when it comes to conflict, so early on, we try not to avoid it. We want it out in the open, and the nature of what we do is actually going to have disparate points of view, right? Like that's good marketing to have that different context. And so we actually actively put people together that we know are different personality types on teams to try and encourage a respectful way of challenging each other's thinking.
Yep. Back on when you mentioned that you want to hire someone that's got a growth mentality, they get in the role and they actually don't. In Canada, what's the IR or rules over there with getting rid of people? Do you have a probation period? That in Australia you can fire someone within 6 months. I believe in New Zealand they've removed that now, but Australia, if someone doesn't work out within 6 months, you can get rid of them, and they've got no comeback for unfair dismissal on you.
Yeah, we have at our we follow Alberta standards, and we've had all kinds of different things happen, but we've parted fairly amicably with people. But it's 3 months. We have a 3-month probation for our company, and it's basically a check-in, right? And if there's problems within, usually within a week, right? Within a week, And I mean, sometimes we get caught up because we just don't want to go through the hassle of finding someone else, especially in a small business. Like you just don't have that kind of time, right?
It's the warm
But
body
it's worth
trap.
it.
Just I need a body to do this job.
Yeah,
We're
it
growing
never
too
works.
fast. No, it doesn't.
It never works. And I got great advice, you know, hire more. If somebody comes along and can do better more and it's more money, that's a way better hire than hiring less.
Yes.
So take the talent, go for the talent every time.
What are some things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
So we've worked really hard on culture because agencies like, you know, you've watched Mad Men and whatever, right? It's notorious for drama, shock and awe, and a lot of ego. Right?
You guys are drinking
it's
whiskeys at 11 in the morning?
Yeah, you know, it's just what we do. You know, cannabis in the afternoon. You know. Anyways, I think for culture, transparency. So super transparent right from the beginning in terms of leadership, and not, you know, transparency that isn't, you know, we don't want people to be disconcerted, but we want to be as transparent and open as possible and as direct as possible. I'm going to say, you know, during this COVID, if you don't have an HR, if you don't think you're big enough for an HR person, find an HR consultant.
Definitely.
Because this world is on fire.
Yep.
We do not know, you know, this work from home and everything that's going on. We probably did that too late. I wished we would have brought it in earlier. We could have gone faster, but bring in help.
Yep.
You can't possibly know everything. And if you're good at HR, you're probably not a good entrepreneur.
No, that's right. You've got your strengths, you need to stick to it. And I think in the age of COVID, there's a whole lot of, you know, structural changes happening, people working from home. That also brings some risks or negativity around, for example, mental health, you know, people being motivated, productive, feeling disconnected because they've got the social contact. So the HR element, checking in on people, making sure and looking for the signs, etc., I think is really important.
It's hard. It's really hard, right? And the people that are struggling are probably not going to tell you.
Yep.
We have a really good plan, so people can call an anonymous. You know, we don't know, but it's available to them. And we're getting better about actually flagging it, I guess. But we just have no disconnect now, right? Like we're all working probably more than we've ever worked. So make sure you're doing something you love if you are going to put in that kind of time.
Yes. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
No. Okay. So, you know, I have kids, I have a husband, we're partners in work and in life. And I actually don't, I used to try really hard, and I got to tell you, I don't think it's a real deal. I think pour in passion where you want to pour in passion, and the world is your oyster.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be equal. And you know it, like, you know, when you're in relationships, in any kind of relationship, right? It's never 50-50, right? It's 80-10 or whatever makes sense. And do what feels good. And not every day is going to be a good day, and you're not going to be perfect anywhere. So, you know, I guess get over it, right? Like there's no perfection is not the goal here, right? Growth is the goal. So I would say, no, I don't actually have a good balance. I mean, I try to do things, but it, you know, I love what we do as an entrepreneur. I love it.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years? So books,
not enough,
courses, training, conferences.
Yeah, not enough. I'm now coming to that. If you're younger and you're thinking about being, starting something, go get some more education, or do that on the side, or go back. And I've worked with people, right, that have no post-secondary at all. And it's one of their biggest regrets in life, you know, and it's ironic, right? It doesn't matter how well they've done, they regret it.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to always say not enough. But, you know, experience is a beautiful thing, right? So I think keep going. And I take a lot of courses now, and my people actually are, you know, there's so much going on in marketing, and they're wizards. So I take it all in where I can, but I will not profess to be an expert in any of it, really.
And have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
Yes. Yes, I have. I don't think, I think I, I don't think I had mentors, but everybody's kind of looking at their own way of doing things. I think now with especially what we're doing with mental health and this idea of accelerators and incubators and people like yourself, I think there's much more a culture of having somebody that's a coach. When we started in 2003, it really wasn't a normal course of action. So I didn't find it tremendously helpful. I think the best piece of advice I ever got was just keep your nose clean.
Yep.
Like pay your bills, right? Do what you're going to say, don't get into weird back corner deals. That was probably the best advice I got.
And do you have a board of directors or advisors?
We don't. Not in this company, but we actually have an AI company. We just launched Sylvester AI this past year, and it will have an advisory board and whatnot. So I'm not against it. It's just another thing to manage, though, right? And you've got disparate voices, so you got to really know what you want to get out of that.
Yep, agreed. All right, Susan, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Oh, what is the hardest thing? I think losing confidence that, if you're not getting the traction, you think you have it's confirmation bias, right? You think you have a great idea. And then if people aren't, going to naturally love it, it's really easy to get down and think, okay, maybe this isn't the right approach. But get used to people saying no and really think about why you're doing it. And that will see you through it all, right? So I think it's easy to get disheartened when things don't always go the way you planned. And listen, they never do.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Yeah, Stephen Covey, Back to the Vault, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Great book.
Listen, you can't grow in one area of your life and not grow in another. It's everywhere, right? So this is a human journey. I found that a really good book. And we actually did the 360 reviews. Super, super enlightening in terms of what people really think about you.
Yep.
Really good to get out of your own head. And then Who Moved My Cheese is another great one.
I read that probably 20 years ago. Who's the author of that?
Yeah, Spencer Johnson.
That's it.
And and it's still, it's about change, right?
Yep. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Oh yeah, like we're exploding, right, with everything that's out there now. Harvard Business Reviews obviously got some great courses. And then, I dive into marketing podcasts, right? Just so that I can stay up to date with what's happening.
What are some of the good ones there that you follow?
Well, I'm a big fan. I like storytelling. So Terry O'Reilly actually, Under the Influence is it's a CBC, a Canadian podcast.
Yep.
But highly, if you guys love marketing, he's a great storyteller, and he's got some wonderful insights in terms of some of the biggest brands in the world, and how they came to be and and didn't be, and some of the inspiration for their creative.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Podcasts. Oh boy, I don't know. Probably this one. How's that? I don't usually go to a podcast for my my business ideas. Do you know where I do go is Clubhouse?
Yeah, I've seen that recently. That's a new kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So what's fascinating about Clubhouse, and sorry guys, if you don't have an iOS, you're not in the cool crowd yet. But it's free. It's free right now. They're actually in beta, right? So they haven't commercialized. And it's basically you just join little speaking groups. And so Clubhouse has actually been incredibly powerful. They're going to try and monetize it, so we'll see what happens. But they had about 3 million followers, and then they asked Elon Musk to come on, and that jumped to about 8 million like overnight.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where they're at now. So they're trying to figure out monetization. But Clubhouse is another one. It's audio based. We're all tired of Zooming, right? And you get to instant access to people that you want to speak with.
Yep.
And you get to listen. So there's a ton of startup. There's a ton of stuff on Clubhouse.
Great.
I'd actually try. I'd recommend it for you too. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll check it out.
You'd be great. You should have your own space.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
It's going to be just as good as you think it's going to be.
Great.
It's as exciting as you think, and it's going to come with all this other stuff. But, nothing in life that is worth it is easy. And it has to be hard, just like good relationships, right? You got to go through some hard bits. So let her roll. Just love it all. It's, this too shall pass, right? Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time today, Susan. I think the audience got a shit ton of value out of what you've shared with us, and congratulations on your success and journey. You and your husband and the wider team, up to 50 to 60 FTE now after 18 years is phenomenal growth. And working obviously in a really exciting area of marketing across 3 or 4 different industries. I think that's well done.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate, right? And I think a lot of people, when they ask about how it all happened, you know what? Even when we were working for other people, we just tried to do really good work and treat it like it was our own business.
Yep.
And if you think you have that feeling, even if you're working for someone else, it'll happen for you. The doors will open. Just keep your head down and keep building really good relationships. And there'll be an opportunity come by. It'll happen.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.